Unfortunately, more grim news on the horizon. South African motorists will now have to dig a little bit deeper into their pockets for fuel. The Energy Department confirming yet another massive price hike. 93 octane petrol will increase by R2.37 a litre, while 95 octane will increase by R2.57. The price of diesel will climb by R2.31. The new prices, which will take petrol to above 26 Rand a litre inland, are expected to come into effect on Wednesday. Well, let's stay with that story. We're joined now by the SA Fuel Retailers Association CEO, Reggie Sibiya. Mr. Sibiya, good evening to you. Look, I don't think people have any more room in their pockets to try and scrummage around and find the extra for this petrol increase.
Good evening, Kathy. Yes, that's just a very sad reality, and I agree with you. And I think one of the things that we really have to admit is that energy globally is not cheap. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but the reality is that it is not cheap, and fuel is part of that energy mix. And you know, Kathy, we do sympathize a lot with our customers, you know, because our businesses, you know, are supported by them. But, you know, Kathy, just on maybe a note, just a commentary note, you know, to say, you know, as much as one do not wish that we should be in this situation as South Africans, but if you look really globally, if you watch global news, you will know that certainly there are countries that are already worse than where we are. I mean, if you go to Sri Lanka today, customers are not even worried about the price. They are worried about where they're going to get their fuel. And because, again, of this Ukraine and Russia war. And one will actually wish that we do not get to those kind of levels. And Katie, also, you know, we always emphasize this, that, you know, we are equally affected. I mean, if you look at our gross margins, last year, they were sitting at around 10%. And this month, our gross margin is sitting at 6%. And that's exactly because, you know, our margins and some of our costs are linked to these prices going up. So we are just equally crying out to the government as the motorists are. You know, our credit card cost today, every transaction of a credit card cost will cost you 46 cents a litre. And if you think about it, what is allocated in the margin for profit before even, you know, any kind of clawbacks is 31 cents a litre. So if you've got a credit card cost, which is not in the margin, costing you 46 cents a litre, we are basically selling fuel at a loss when it comes to this credit cost you know, scenario. And also, Kathy, you know, you do not have any idea of the hardships on the ground. I can tell you now, I don't know of any retailer that is honest, that is currently running their business, you know, without an overdraft. There is basically no retailer. And in fact, the majority of them have even exceeded their overdraft limits. And as a result, they are being chased by the oil companies for payments. They are being chased by the banks. They are being chased by the MIPCO, which is our bargaining council, because they are in areas there for contribution towards pension funds, which are employee benefits. That's how hard it is on the ground for a fuel retailer. It's really tough. And, you know, I wish we could come and say we've got a solution. And I know the solution that is being spoken of right now is deregulation. And it worries me, Katie, because that discussion is not informed by facts. That discussion is not supported by empirical evidence. If you go to UK today, a deregulated market, people are marching on the streets because of fuel prices. If you go to Germany, people are marching on the streets because of the fuel prices. If you go to US, the noise is just as big. And you ask me what is one common thing between us and those countries I've just mentioned. We are all net importers. If we had enough of our own, it will be a different situation. All net importers, including those that are deregulated. So when I hear people, standing up in public platforms saying that deregulation is an answer, they are actually misleading, the consumers. Because even diesel right now in South Africa is deregulated. It's been deregulated long time ago, KP. And the question is, why are diesel prices not cheap? So, if people are talking about, public participation, and I think our government is connected enough in the whole world. We've got embassies across the world. And it's just a simple matter of saying, the embassy in UK, how is the government there dealing with the issue of fuel prices, seeing that they've been deregulated for a long time? So we've got access to information.
So, Mr. Sibiya, if you're saying that retailers are just as affected as their consumers, then what are you, as the Retailers Association, putting on the table as potential solutions to the problem that we find ourselves in? Yes, we know we're not unique. We've seen in other countries different groupings of people take to the streets to protest the high fuel, food prices that we've seen in the last couple of months. But what are the solutions that you think we can be looking at as South Africa?
Well, the first, thing that we believe government should be doing is to balance the scales, number one, because you do not want to take money from retailers where there is nothing to take and make them, crumble down the floor to make motorists happy. That is not a solution. So, and also, Kathy, we need to be realistic that, there were two really pandemic issues. The one was the COVID. It was a health pandemic, which we just came from. And businesses are still suffering from those effects. Everybody's still suffering from those effects. And then we have this geopolitical, conflict. And it's adding to the problem. So, and I think the government is doing the best they can. I mean, the government has actually intervened in terms of bringing some short-term relief. And one was hoping that, also the Ukraine and Russia, warfare war will be actually temporary. But I think for now, our government has given something. And I don't think there's anything that's going to come from retailers. And the long-term solution, Kathy, the other day we were talking about, somebody was saying, well, what about electric vehicles? I said, well, with stage 6 that we're in today, imagine if 60% of our vehicles were electric vehicles. What would be the situation? So I don't think there is one solution or one answer. This needs to be an integrated energy mix, that needs to be looked at, and calling all the important stakeholders, and not just people that stand up on the crowds and make a noise without any evidence. I think we need all to come together as an energy cluster, that including the stakeholders, and look at these alternatives. But really, in terms of short-term relief, I think it's what the government has been able to give.
All right.
And when people say that deregulation is going to be that solution, they are basically just misleading the motorists.
SA Fuel Retailers Association CEO Reggie Sibiya will leave it there for tonight. So that's the view of his association in terms of the current impact of the increasing fuel prices.